And I'm in the Slavic department. I'm by far the oldest person in that department who probably should have retired years ago, but who cannot give up the classroom, okay? And also I have to confess, I love giving talks, so I might enjoy giving it more than you enjoy hearing it, I'm afraid, but that's the way it goes. All right, so the title of my talk, as you can see, is Desires and Devices in Putin's Russia with an eye on the West, okay? And I start with a preface, okay? As any fan of murder mysteries recognizes, my title evokes the renowned British author P.D. James's 1989 bestseller, Devices and Desires. I've reversed the two Ds because an individual's desires precede the devices adopted to realize them. Can everyone hear me, or at least as much as you want to? Okay. Right. Little did I know, when I edited a volume of articles on Putin titled Putin a Celebrity and Cultural Icon in 2013, that I would become a so-called expert on Putin. At that time, as someone specializing in visual culture and folklore, I was fascinated by the panoply of cultural phenomena devoted to him. From paintings, statues, and matryoshkas, to vodka, cakes, cups, bed sheets, t-shirts, notebooks, frost-resistant tomatoes, chocolates, and, as recent additions, toilet paper and more chocolates, all of which bear his image or his name or both. And I'm an easy person to be seduced as far as visuals are concerned, so here we go. That's the chocolate Putin of quite a few years ago, okay? This is the Putin cologne. You know probably what it smells like. Okay, the divine nomination, right, for Putin. Okay, Putin as Madonna and as the Savior. Gambling on Putin. Putin as macho leader, right, of the pack. Get real pleasure, tells you, okay? And finally, 3 Putin chocolates, okay? The middle one, right, that's the dark chocolate, which is bitter, gorky, right? Then the kind one with the puppy on the right, dobry, and then the white one, right, white chocolate to the left, with the deer, nежный, okay? Okay. Since the publication of that book, I've created an exhibition of Putin visuals in Haggerty's Hall thematic space. Okay, sorry, I forgot about this chocolate too. Oh, this is very interesting because this is the Ukrainian version of chocolate. Okay, not so sweet. Okay, as you can see, what you have is, right, Putin in prison garb holding a bomb.
Is that the chocolate king of Ukraine that put that together? The current president?
I don't know who commissioned it, but there you have it. And then this is really a rather nerving one, right? Putin in shell casings. Okay, so this is, right, the exhibition I had in Haggerty Hall with my chair, Jan Mahashimov asked me to put together. I've also given interviews about Putin to various media entities such as Voice of America, reviewed submissions about Putin to various media, and also reviewed submissions to journals such as Demokratizacja and Cultural Studies, delivered talks about him at several universities, and now appear before you to speak about the international media's favorite head of state as regards news-making prominence, and supposedly the man who is the most powerful one in the world. In short, while Elvis may have left the building, Putin remains on everyone's radar. So, from Sinterfella to Centerfold. Who is Mr. Putin? This question, tirelessly iterated during the first decade of the new millennium by Western media, scholars and political pundits, attempting to grasp Russia's post-Yeltsin orientation through its key figure, came to characterize the country's enigmatic new president. In kindred fashion, Russian journalists refer to him as a dark horse and a blank sheet. Interviews with him, published in 2000 as At Первого лица, first person, revealed above all his secretive tendencies and merely fueled speculation. Taciturn and paradoxical in his public persona, Putin remained an unknown quantity, apart from his past as an unremarkable KGB agent in Germany and loyal assistant and deputy to Anatoly Sobchak, his and Dmitry Medvedev's mentor and mayor of St. Petersburg from 1991 to 1996. That was then. What now? After 16 years at the political helm, Putin arguably is the head of state, most frequently covered by media around the world. He enjoys an unprecedented support of 82, sometimes more percent, of Russia's population, has expanded Russia through annexation of former Ukrainian Crimea, and is widely deemed a significant international negotiator, as a huge banner mysteriously suspended on New York's Manhattan Bridge on 6th of October 2016 registered. Then, of course, there is his recent role in Syria. In fact, Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro has created a special peace prize in honor of late socialist leader Hugo Chavez, and in October of last year, he awarded it to Putin. It is called the Hugo Chavez Prize for Peace and Sovereignty. In 2007, Time magazine featured Putin as Person of the Year, okay? An honor also twice accorded Stalin, also to Hitler, the computer, and in 2016, Donald Trump. That status denotes the most news-making individual for that year, and Putin repeatedly appears on Time's cover, as well as that of the New Yorker. During Putin's third term, Forbes magazine, for the fourth consecutive year, has named him the most powerful man in the world. How did he get from there to here? To answer that query, I examine, I suppose you could say, Putin's evolution, the clear emergence of his ambitions and his mode of dealing with perceived threat, his status in Russia, and his attitude to and relationship with the US. By the way, I don't know whether you can see, these are handcuffs. So there's very definitely a difference between the Austrian, right, time and the American one. Right? All right. As I've argued elsewhere, the Kursk incident served as Putin's political baptism by fire, less than a year after his assumption of the presidency. Do you want to sit down? You don't want to stand there all this time.
Chair up here, is it chair?
Okay. Engaged in naval exercises in the Barents Sea during August 2000, the submarine Kursk sank after two explosions destroyed the vessel, ultimately taking the lives of its entire 118-man crew. On vacation in Sochi at the time, Putin incurred indignant opprobrium both in Russia and in the West for temporizing and poor judgment. Initially declining offers of rescue attempts from Britain, Norway and the US, he returned home 5 days after the tragedy, having placed personal enjoyment and national pride ahead of human life. Moreover, he compounded his apparent callous indifference in a memorable moment when interviewed on The Larry King Show. In answer to King's portentously earnest question, "Tell me, what happened with the submarine?" he blithely replied with a smirk, "It sank." It did not help matters that his belated response to the Kursk disaster occurred in the midst of his public promise to restore Russia's glory as a military power by rebuilding its conventional forces. Public reactions to his inadequate management of the catastrophe taught Putin a lesson that thereafter would determine his handling of public relations. And I think, in my view, this was a key moment for him. His responses to the multiple crises that followed were swift, self-assured, and, importantly, widely covered by both domestic and foreign media. In general, Putin quickly learned the benefits of appearing in the media limelight, particularly when he initiated policies and made decisions likely to appeal to the Russian population, such as increases in pensions, the disempowerment of the oligarchs, financial support of culture, notably of the ailing film industry, and institutionalization of new holidays such as People's Unity Day on the 4th of November, which eerily recalls Yevgeny Zamyatin's novel, right, of 1921, titled We Mood. According to public opinion surveys, by June 2007, Putin's approval rating had reached 81%, the highest of any leader in the world. And throughout the first decade of the new millennium, his popularity never fell below 65%. I might note that part of the population's support derived from its initial approval of the war in Chechnya, which had started on the Ox, of course, which Putin pursued this, okay? Just as his annexation of Crimea in 2014 boosted his national popularity, thus far unaffected by the sanctions imposed upon Russia by the West. Putin's realization of the media's incalculable power, and power certainly rests at the forefront of his interest, led to a series of actions and initiatives that became inseparable from his modus operandi during his first 2 stints as president and his 4 years as prime minister. Nominal prime minister because, of course, he was the power behind Medvedev. First, within the country, he cleverly engineered a marathon call-in show labeled Прямая линия с президентом, direct line with the president, a tightly controlled performance that aired in 2001 and continues to this day. During the 3 hours of the widely broadcast show, advertised well in advance, citizens from all parts of Russia can telephone Putin with questions that he answers, usually at considerable length and with a crushing dose of data. Carefully orchestrated and rehearsed, this exercise in winning people's goodwill is intended to present Putin as a frank, infallible, yet accessible leader, genuinely concerned with issues that trouble or puzzle citizens. Throughout the broadcast, he offers explanations, expresses understanding and empathy, and makes reassuring promises. In other words, he projects the image of the self-confident, efficient, simpatico president. As both Michael Gorham and Lara Ryazanova-Clark have argued, direct line, which Putin maintained even as prime minister, showcases his persona as an omniscient, savvy leader, fully in command of any situation, and supremely, and I would say uniquely, equipped to rule the country. That image is buttressed by his ubiquity at national celebrations, sports events, museum functions, film openings, meetings with Kulturarbeiter, and on television. If nothing else, Putin is thorough and reluctant to leave anything to chance. Armed with his awareness of media's power, for the first 12 years, he relied on it to consolidate that image and thereby accrue his own power in a series of self-promoting stunts, reports of which circulated around the world. There he is resettling brains. Okay. This is when he supposedly discovered Greek amphorae in the Black Sea, and it only later materialized that they were planted there so that this could be a photo op event. Okay? Since I analyzed these and countless other stunts of this nature in the volume that I credited, I shall not belabor this aspect of his policy of image construction, though the visuals are hilarious. Suffice it to say that Putin embarked on an often embarrassing but effective series of stunts that maintained him in the international media limelight. No other national leader has exposed presidential pecs as readily as did Putin. None has been videotaped forcing a judo opponent down to the mat or playing ice hockey with a professional team. None has crooned Strawberry Hill to an international audience. None has attempted to resettle birds. None has frolicked with dogs and dolphins in front of the cameras. Also, none has publicly kissed or fed horses, goats, and incredibly enough, fish. A regular display that the talented cartoonist Sergei Yolkin has satirized more than once. Yolkin is a wonderful cartoonist. Okay, so the question of motivation. Why did Putin engage in such ludicrous antics, however, successfully reinforced his image as a strong macho leader? His motivation, in my view, originates in his expressed conviction that the disintegration of the Soviet Union was, and I quote, the greatest geopolitical tragedy of the 20th century, and consequently his determination to restore Russia's greatness while establishing his own. Greed for money and power, plus belief that he is the only politician capable of elevating Russia to its former stature, drives him. And when I talk about greed, I am totally in accord with Karin Davish's book, Putin's Kleptocracy, which came out in 2014, an excellent book, I think. He has ensured the identification of Russia with his own persona, and Russia's cowed populace cannot separate Russia's identity and international reputation from Putin. The last Duma elections, in which less than 50% of the population participated, gave Putin's party 76% of places in the Duma, that is 343. Russians overwhelmingly voted for Единая Россия, that is United Russia. Now Putin's party, once again, though right before the 2012 presidential elections, when its membership and enthusiasm were dwindling, he quickly dissociated himself from it, presenting it as Medvedev's party, so as to head the hastily constituted Народный Front, People's Front. But since now the United Party is again popular, it has also become again Putin's party. Okay, another motivation, ressentiment. Putin cannot forgive the West, and especially America, for the dissolution of the Soviet Empire, which left America as the sole remaining superpower. And as the symbol of Russia, he interprets any criticism of Russia as a personal slight. His vanity also cannot be discounted, as implied by his facelift and Botox treatment in 2011. Of course, Ronald Reagan and Putin's close friend, the diminutive 5'5", though tall by comparison with me, Silvio Berlusconi, right, then the scandalous right head of Italy, they dyed their hair so as to appear younger. And the desire for a more youthful appearance also may have prompted, probably did, the various procedures Putin underwent to improve his image, partly but through physical image. Having a mistress approximately half his age may have played an additional role. He Tarzan, now 64, she Jane, now 33. Okay. I won't speculate about the wish to compensate for a height of 5'7", which makes him appear inordinately short in photographs by comparison with such men as Obama, and prompted Mike Pence's reference to Putin as, and I quote, a small and bullying leader. End quote. Bullying and even sadism asserted themselves during Putin's first meeting with Angela Merkel in 2006, when his staff discovered her fear of dogs after she had been bitten by one in 1995. At Putin's official dacha, during the first exchange between the two heads of state, he was caught by a photographer with a look of smugness on his face after he had his very famous, now dead, black Labrador Koni enter the room and approach the German Prime Minister. If, as Putin has declared, he is, and I quote him, a specialist in communicating with people, unquote, intimidation clearly was his intended message. Similarly, it is quite likely that Russia's hacking during the recent American elections was Putin's revenge on Hillary Clinton, who as Secretary of State had decried the 2011 Russian parliamentary elections as neither free nor fair, causing Putin to assert that her words had prompted protest, especially in Moscow. Though Putin has denied the hacking, let's not forget he also denied that there were Russians in Crimea, then according to Gleb Pavlovsky, his former political strategist and now an independent political consultant out of favor with the Kremlin, statements from the United States about Russian hackers, according to him, and I'm quoting, made the Kremlin happy. They showed the Kremlin is capable of affecting the US elections. All that's left is for Russia to affect the stock market in New York and everything will be perfect. End of quote. One-upmanship and pleasuring pleasure in humiliating colleagues and perceived adversaries are part of Putin's self-assertive personality, and they operate on an international scale. Since he regained the presidency in 2012, Putin has ceased his cynosure antics. As a matter of fact, the amphora, I think, that was the last antic of his. By now, he doesn't need to have any more antics ascribed to him because his position is secure enough not to warrant them. But his vigilance has not abated, and he has taken various steps in the last few years, as well as earlier, to ensure his position as unchallenged peerless leader. And unlike his first two terms, this third has been marked by belligerence, witness both Crimea and Syria, brazen lies, and repeated accusations of America's efforts, to undermine Russia. Whether it be the Olympics and the exposed illegal doping of its athletes, not garnering the top prize at Eurovision, the West response to the unlawful annexation of Crimea, or criticism of increased censorship and the suspects' deaths of oppositional figures, Putin's as well as Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov's standard reaction is to deny all wrongdoing and to accuse the US and the West of hostility and willful attempts to demonize Russia. The regularity of this rhetoric prompted a Frenchman reporting on the recent colorization of the French reissue of the 1930s anti-communist publication by the Belgian Georges Remy, Tintin in the Land of the Soviets, to assert, and I quote him, "Before Moscow condemns it as another piece of Russian Russophobia, this has nothing to do with Vladimir Putin." So it's not just the Americans who say such things. Tellingly, Putin's popularity increased perceptibly after the attacks on Ukraine, which continued to have overwhelming support from Russians likewise offended by the loss of empire. Accordingly, such local leaders as Vadim Potomsky, the governor of Oryol, where on 14th of October last year, officials inaugurated a statue of Ivan the Terrible. So, this is what Potomsky said during the ceremony in which the statue was revealed. Quote, "We have a great, powerful president who has forced the whole world to respect and defer to Russia, just like Ivan the Terrible did in his time." End of quote. If you recall, Ivan the Terrible was the bloody 16th century Tsar who massacred his subjects by the thousands and even reportedly killed his own son. Much admired, of course, by Stalin. Yearning for the world's respect bonds Russians with their leader, and partly accounts for the stoic acceptance of the market sanctions imposed by the West. Now, many Western commentators fail to understand the enormous significance of Putin's KGB training and experience. Writing about Putin's repeated denials that the troops in Simferopol, Crimea, in late February 2014, if you remember the little green men as they were called, were not the Russian military, but local self-defense forces. Angela Merkel's astute biographer, Matthew Kvartrup, observes that Putin's well-known Soviet military tactic, that of maskirovka, was at play. It is defined in the Soviet military encyclopedia as follows, and I quote, "Strategic maskirovka is carried out at national and theater levels to mislead the enemy as to political and military capabilities, intentions, and timing of actions. In these spheres, as war is but an extension of politics, it includes political, economic, and diplomatic measures as well as military ones." End of quote. Maskirovka, in short, was critical to the Russian invasion of Crimea and to various measures taken abroad. One such measure was the establishment of RT, a Russian international television network funded by the Kremlin, directed at audiences outside of Russia. A multilingual service with conventional channels in 3 languages, it broadcasts in English, Arabic, and Spanish. RT America and RT UK offer some local content in these countries, but there is no question that RT as an entity functions as a propaganda outlet for the Kremlin and its foreign policy. Analogously, a key example of Putin's imperialism and ideological strategy is the new Kremlin-financed Orthodox Cathedral, part of a $100 million spiritual center near the Eiffel Tower. So closely associated with Putin that France's former Minister of Culture, Frédéric Mitterrand, suggested that it be called Saint Vladimir's. Secured, which is not a bad name after all, no, not the only Vladimir, right, who was in power. Secured by the Russian state after years of lobbying by the Kremlin, the huge complex of 4 separate buildings will include not only the cathedral, but a school, conference halls, and a cultural center administered by the Russian embassy. Okay? The whole is owned not by the Orthodox Church, but by the Russian state, which beat out Saudi Arabia, Canada, and other countries that had also sought to buy the coveted plot for their purposes. Okay? Michel Elchaninov, the French author of Dans la tête de Vladimir Putin, in the head of, or inside the head of Vladimir Putin, a book about Russian presidents' thinking, the Russian president's thinking, justly argues, and I quote, "This cathedral is an outpost of the other Europe, ultra-conservative and anti-modern, in the heart of the country of libertinism and secularism," end of quote. Likewise, the merging of political, diplomatic, and religious interests has been on vivid display in Nice, where the Orthodox Cathedral St. Nicholas came under the control of the Moscow Patriarchate in 2013. Unlike the national government in Paris, local leaders in Nice, who mostly represent right-wing forces, support Putin, even applauding the annexation of Crimea. With its control of the Nice Cathedral secure and work on the new Paris Cathedral moving toward completion, Moscow has turned its sights on a small patch of Orthodox territory still beyond its control. A cemetery containing the graves of long-dead anti-communist generals, a former Tsarist foreign minister, and scores of other Orthodox Christians, mostly Russians, who died on the French Riviera. Political power, not spiritual values, fuels these endeavors, which have an increasingly broad reach. Ideological aggression under Putin assumes multiple forms. In August, and it does so in different places, in August 2016, an item in the New York Times reported the sudden appearance of widespread disinformation, I suppose we can say alternative facts, okay, on social media in Sweden, when the country was debating the possibility of entering a military relationship with NATO. Again, another of Putin's bête noire. The commentator concluded that Putin, quote, has invested heavily in a program of weaponized information using a variety of means to sow doubt and discord. The goal is to weaken cohesion among member states, stir discord in their domestic policies, and blunt opposition to Russia, end of quote. Indeed, 2 months later, Reuters noted that, according to a private American research group, Russia has mounted a campaign of covert economic and political measures to manipulate 5 countries in Central Europe and Eastern Europe to discredit the West's liberal democratic model and undermine transatlantic ties. Apparently, and I quote, Moscow had co-opted sympathetic politicians, strived to dominate energy markets and other economic sectors, and undermined anti-corruption measures in an attempt to gain sway over governments in Bulgaria, Hungary, Latvia, Serbia, and Slovakia. Now, this may not seem so serious, but consider the following. A journalist writing in Britain's newspaper, The Guardian, registered a disturbing trend whereby the West's ascendant populist right portrays its opponents as traitors while aligning itself with Moscow's authoritarian regime. Trump, for example, has bragged about having a relationship with Vladimir Putin, whatever it may be, praising his war in Syria as wonderful. France's Front National, right, National Front, under Marine Le Pen, not only received soft loans from a Russian bank close to Putin, but also backed Russia's annexation of Crimea, praised his regime, and demanded the banning of dual citizenship, with a notable exception of Russian passport holders. Okay. When Italy's government lost its constitutional referendum last year, populist right-wing leader Matteo Salvini tweeted, "Viva Trump, viva Putin." Shortly after being defeated by the country's presidential election, the far-right Austrian Freedom Party signed a cooperation agreement with Putin's party, and Britain's right-wing Independent Party is besotted with Putin. Its short-lived leader, Diane James, named Putin one of her 3 political heroes, while another of its formal heads, Nigel Farage, described Putin as the political leader he most admires. Its current leader, Paul Nuttall, considers Putin and Syria's President Bashar Assad UK's major allies in the battle against terrorism. You probably can recognize from where I have a crassé l'enfant, okay, crushing the real or perceived opposition. To dispose of any rivals, Putin early eliminated the oligarchs, such as Boris Berezovsky, and I'm not convinced that he committed suicide, okay, who wisely fled to London, where he was found having been hanged. Okay. Putin also defined Vladimir Potanin, Alexander Smolensky, and Vladimir Gusinsky, and he trumped up charges against Mikhail Khodorkovsky, who spent a decade in prison essentially for challenging Putin, for having political aspirations. Forced by the constitution to give up the presidency for a term, Putin cannily had the harmless, obedient Medvedev function as the nominal president, ready to buckle under Putin's priorities. When Moscow's ambitious, media-savvy mayor, Yuri Lushkov, nurtured aspirations to the presidency, Putin via Medvedev removed and replaced him, this was in 2010, by the pliable anodyne Sergei Sobyanin. Today, Khodorkovsky opposes Putin from abroad, and Lushkov is a non-person in Russia, though his millionaire wife still is remembered and cited always in Forbes as being one of Russia's, if not Russia's, richest woman. More recently, Putin dismissed Sergei Ivanov, his influential, quick-thinking head of staff, and again promoted Anton Vianov, Ivanov's deputy, and a cipher to that position. Okay. The solution with the politically experienced opposition leader, Boris Nemtsov, whom some viewed as a viable contender for the presidency in future elections, was simpler if more radical. As I'm sure most of you know from all of you, in 2015 he was fatally shot close to the Kremlin, purportedly by someone unknown, or of course by a Chechen, supposedly. Not only overly powerful politicians and wannabes have toppled. Under Putin, journalists associated with liberalism have suffered comparable fates. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, at least 56 journalists have been killed in Russia since 1992. Some of the most prominent Kremlin critics assassinated during Putin's presidency include Paul Klebnikov, Anna Politkovskaya, Anastasia Baburova, and Yuri Shchekokyhin. Various political critics of Putin have met similar fates, most notably, as you all know, Alexander Litvinenko, Mikhail Yesin, Alexander Petyev, and Nemtsov, whom I mentioned earlier. Earlier this month, Nemtsov's close friend and prominent political member of the political opposition, the journalist Vladimir Kara-Murza, a US green card holder with dual British-Russian citizenship, who almost died from an apparent poisoning 2 years ago, was in critical condition once again after suddenly falling ill during a trip to Moscow to promote a documentary about Nemtsov. It so happens that he is chairman of the Boris Nemtsov Foundation for Freedom and coordinator of the Open Russia Foundation, which promotes civil society and democracy. Founded by Khodorkovsky in 2001, it closed in 2006, but reopened in 2014. Kara-Murza testifies before Congress on political repression in Russia. So that explains why he might be a target. Likewise, Alexei Navalny, a prominent oppositional blogger, and Mikhail Kasyanov, the former prime minister, have been physically attacked. On the basis of such incidents, one can understand Fox News' Bill O'Reilly's calling Putin a murderer. As Mark Galeotti, a specialist in Russia's secret services, pointed out in an interview, quote, outside of popular culture, there are no highly skilled hitmen for hire. If it's a skilled job, that means it's a state asset, end of quote. Milder punishments have been meted out to artists who have offered strong resistance to Putin's regime. Groups of artists such as Vainar and the extraordinary solo activist Pyotr Pavlensky, you probably know about him. He sewed up his mouth, then he actually fastened his scrotum to the ground, no, not far from the Kremlin came. And at last he set fire to the door of the FSB, the Secret Service headquarters on Lubyanka Square. He was tried, refused to pay the penalty, and last month fled to France so as to avoid imprisonment. Today, art in general is subject to censorship of not only the government, but also of self-appointed apostles of political and sexual propriety. And this is outside. This was a photo exhibit where there were some children shown, and the young men there are protecting people from seeing such things as briefly dressed children. Okay, entities as foreign agents. Putin's enmity vis-à-vis the West, and above all the US, manifested itself in the retaliatory law that responded to the US Magnitsky Act of 2010. The latter was intended as a punitive measure against those who killed the Russian lawyer Sergei Magnitsky in prison in 2009, prohibiting their entry. In other words, the Magnitsky Act prohibited the entry of those who supposedly were responsible into the US, and their access to American banks. Almost immediately, the Duma overwhelmingly voted to ban American adoption of Russian children. A bill written into law shortly thereafter requires all non-governmental organizations engaged in politics or seeming to engage in politics that receive funding from abroad to register with the Justice Ministry as foreign agents, which of course in Russian really is the equivalent of spies. Right? According to the bill, an NGO is categorized as a foreign agent if it receives funding from other countries or their public agencies, international and foreign organizations, non-citizens or their representatives. All NGOs have to submit financial records and semi-annual reports on their activities to Russia's authorities. Additionally, NGOs may be inspected based on individual complaints or publications about extremism in their activities. And of course, anyone can publish something like that. It's not that hard. Among the approximately 150 entities listed as foreign agents are, not coincidentally, the Levada Center and Memorial. Now, the Levada Center is an independent, the only one that I trusted when I was doing research really, is an independent, non-governmental polling and sociological research organization founded in 2003 that conducts its own and commissioned polling and marketing research. When during Putin's second term, this was in 2006, the center published the results of a poll that had found a significant decline in support for the ruling United Russia Party, it was denounced as, quote, performing the actions or the functions of a foreign agent, end of quote. A pro-Kremlin group called Anti-Maidan, which says it all, urged the center's backlisting, declaring that it had been hired by the US military with, quite incredibly, the University of Wisconsin, of all places, serving as an intermediary between the center and the Pentagon. Okay. Memorial, founded in 1989, is a Russian historical and civil rights society that records and publishes, that records and publicizes the Soviet Union's totalitarian past, as well as monitoring the country's human rights. I have many more examples, but I'm going to skip them because I always keep an eye on the clock. Okay? So, this is the last part. Okay? If, as sundry commentators have speculated, Putin's resentment of Hillary Clinton and his determination to weaken American influence in the world have motivated his verbal support of Trump and Russia's cyber attack, then he must be delighted with the results of our most recent presidential elections and Trump's actions since his inaugurations. Lithuania and other countries have noted the similarities between the two: misogyny, xenophobia, vanity, racism, no tolerance of criticism, and an insatiable thirst for power. And this is with my thanks to Anna Groda, who supplied me with this gem. Sorry it's not high definition. Both men are involved with much younger women, strive to project tough masculinity, and have no interest in alcohol. I was surprised to learn that Trump is a teetotaler, in fact. Okay? Yet two weighty differences favor Putin. First, he is an experienced, cold-blooded, uncalculating politician with a formidable grasp on facts and figures, whereas Trump completely lacks political experience and is, as observers have phrased it, and I've picked these are direct quotes, he is unhinged, erratic, ignorant, rancorous, incompetent, obsessive, and self-deluded. According to a contributor to the British Guardian, he is, quote, a gibbering moron. He prefers his id-driven imaginary scenarios to the reality principle. Freud would be thrilled. Second, Putin knows how to court foreign heads of state. Trump bullies, offends, and alienates them. Witness the calls right to Australia and also Mexico. For him, the presidency is a version of the TV show The Apprentice, which may be why he has attacked its current host, though not for much longer, Arnold Schwarzenegger, in belittling terms. Were Trump better educated, he would recall the Trojan horse in Virgil's Iliad, when seemingly friendly overtures proved to be a cunning device that overturned Troy. Putin qualifies as the Trojan horse squared. Dissimilarities between the two countries' political systems, however, may prove more important than the two heads of state. For centuries and decades, Russia and the Soviet Union, respectively, largely embraced the paternalistic authoritarianism of the Tsar and the First Secretary with little protest. And Putin's status at home illustrates the resilience of that tradition. America's cult of individualism, for better or for worse, its freedom to dissent, and its system of checks and balances explain the countrywide protest against not only Trump's election, but also his ban on Muslim immigrants' entry to the US, as well as a judge's, and I'm talking about Robart here, reversal of that ban, subsequently endorsed by a federal court. Whereas the reasons behind Putin's preference for Trump as president are all too clear, what Trump hopes to gain by speaking favorably of Putin is considerably murkier in my view, though it may be illuminated by the Russian dossier on Trump if it exists and is supposedly currently under investigation by the FBI. At any rate, predicting how the two will fare in the future is the